The recently discovered Kostensuchus atrox was a large crocodilomorph, a relative of crocodilians, which lived during the final few million years of the Mesozoic era. Though primarily, if not entirely terrestrial, Kostensuchus was a large carnivore capable of regularly preying upon dinosaurs. Fossils belonging to similar crocodilomorphs had been found previously, but Kostensuchus is the first member of this group known from a nearly complete skeleton, shedding light on a new and highly successful group of dinosaur hunters. The first Kostensuchus skeleton was excavated in 2020 by a joint Argentinian and Japanese team, and described in 2025. The fossils originate from the Terrestrial Formation in southern Patagonia, which was formed roughly 70 million years ago during the Maastrichtian Age, the last chapter of the Cretaceous period. The Kostensuchus skeleton consists of a skull, most of the torso, the hips, and parts of the limbs, while the tail is completely missing. As for its name, Suchus means crocodile, and is used as a rough equivalent of saurus for prehistoric crocodilians and other crocodilomorphs. Kosten means wind in the language of the indigenous Aonenkank, while the species name, atrox, means fierce or harsh, in reference to the extreme winds of Patagonia. The fierce wind crocodile has also been nicknamed the Bulldog Croc for its disproportionately large head. With a skull nearly half a meter long, Kostensuchus was among the most formidable non-dinosaurian carnivores of its time. Its total body length is estimated to have been 3.5 meters, although this estimate was derived from scaling the missing tail with that of modern crocodilians rather than its terrestrial relatives, which tended to have shorter tails. Based on its length, Kostensuchus is estimated to have weighed roughly 250 kilograms, or 550 pounds. This is the size of a large tiger, and while not able to match Maip, the largest theropod dinosaur in its ecosystem, the Bulldog Croc was one of the deadliest predators of the prehistoric Patagonian food chain. Kostensuchus belonged to Notosuchia, a branch of crocodilomorphs common in the southern hemisphere during the Cretaceous period. Most Notosuchians were fully terrestrial, as they had evolved before the ancestors of modern crocodilians returned to the water, though the Bulldog Croc's evolutionary history is more complicated. It belonged to an early diverging branch of Notosuchia, basal representatives including the small, generalized, and long-lasting genus Peirosauridae, the fox crocodiles. Even during Kostensuchus' time, there was still a species of Peirosauridae present in Madagascar. Closer relatives, called Peirosaurids, instead seem to have been semi-aquatic, filling a similar niche as the ancestors of Crocodilians. These included the medium-sized Itosuchids and the dinosaur-hunting Mahajungasuchids. It was crocodilomorphs like these that appear to have given rise to Kostensuchus' branch of Peirosauridae. Most peirosaurid fossils originate from South America, although a few, such as Hadamasuchus, have been found in Africa. The peirosaurids appear to have been at least semi-terrestrial. However, they are mostly restricted to small prey on account of their low, crocodile-like snouts, which usually taper towards the tip. Their semi-upright gait suggests the peirosaurids still retained some ties to the water. Furthermore, while they were typically larger than Peirosauridae, Kostensuchus was 4 times the size of the largest narrow-snouted peirosaurid. A few other peirosaurids had broad snouts like that of Kostensuchus, but due to their fragmentary nature, little was known about them before the wind crocodile's discovery. One of these, Crocodilian, was roughly the same size as Kostensuchus and lived in Patagonia a few million years after it, just 1 million years before the Chicxulub impact ended the Mesozoic era. The smaller Maiadonosuchus lived in Madagascar at roughly the same time, but fossils attributed to it or a similar genus are 30 million years older. The final known member of Kostensuchus' clade, Gasparinosuchus, prowled in what is now Argentina 85 million years ago, although since the separation of South America and Madagascar occurred over 100 million years ago, the origin of the broad-snouted peirosaurids must predate this event. Their broader snouts and deeper skulls evolved to enable them to hunt large prey, supporting stronger bites and offering greater stress resistance. Kostensuchus' stout lower jaw is broader than that of even the other broad-snouted peirosaurids. Its snout occupies half the length of its skull, which is shorter than in the narrow-snouted peirosaurids. In contrast, the rear of the skull is longer, with expanded temporal openings, and thus jaw muscles. The snouts of most peirosaurids slope downwards, whereas Kostensuchus's deeper snout is almost even with the rest of the skull. A distinctive trait of the Bulldog Croc is a ridge which runs above its eye to the squamosal bones at the rear of its skull, which enhanced its fearsome visage. Kostensuchus's teeth were larger, but fewer in number than those of the narrow-snouted peirosaurids, which made them well adapted for holding onto and tearing apart large prey, while those of its relatives were better suited for catching smaller animals. Kostensuchus's teeth were zyphodont, meaning they were compressed, recurved, and serrated. Such knife-like teeth independently evolved in a number of carnivorous crocodilomorphs and other reptiles, including dinosaurs. This shape was ideal for slicing through flesh. As in many other crocodilomorphs, Kostensuchus had several pairs of enlarged canine-like teeth, with an indentation in its lower jaw to accommodate the enlarged lower pair. The compression of Kostensuchus's teeth was most pronounced in the smaller teeth located behind the canines, with its front teeth being more conical, so as to better hold on to struggling prey. This broadly matches the intention of most other peirosaurids, but is the opposite configuration of the Argentinian peirosaurid Patagosuchus, whose serrated, slicing teeth were located in the front, while the conical teeth were placed further back. Uniquely, among the broad-snouted peirosaurids, the teeth at the tip of Kostensuchus's lower jaw pointed forward, pressed to more easily seize fleeing animals. The fearsome skull of this large notosuchian was supported by powerful neck and shoulder muscles, as evidenced by the high neural spines of the vertebrae in this region. As such, Kostensuchus resembles early reconstructions of the theropod dinosaur Megalosaurus, though with an ironically less crocodile-like snout. Its strengthened muscles would have enabled it to rapidly propel itself towards its prey, and once its jaws clamped down, dispatch them with violent head movements. The windcroc's limbs were also powerfully built compared to those of its relatives, enabling it to subdue the dinosaurs it preyed upon. They were also longer and straighter than the limbs of Crocodilians, who are themselves deceptively fast. However, though not complete, its hind limbs appear to have assumed a semi-sprawling posture, whereas dinosaurs and most other notosuchians had a fully upright gait. It has thus been suggested that Kostensuchus may have retained some ties to the water, though not to the same degree as Crocodilians or the closely related Edosuchids. Alternatively, its semi-sprawling hind limbs may have simply been inherited from its semi-aquatic ancestors, partially compensated for by its more powerful forelimbs. The Peirosaurid was less active than its dinosaurian neighbors, as notosuchians had ectothermic metabolisms. Though capable of quick bursts of speed, the fierce Crocodylomorph would have been unable to outrun most dinosaurs in an extended chase. That said, most notosuchian metabolisms were higher than those of modern Crocodilians, closer to the activity level of monitor lizards. Besides Kostensuchus's previously mentioned branch of Notosuchia, such as the other Peirosaurs, and the Ripisuchus fox crocs, most other Notosuchians belong to the clade Zyphosuchia. They included a number of small species somewhat similar to Ripisuchus, but often with much more complex, mammal-like teeth. However, there was a subclade of Zyphosuchians, the Sebecosuchians, that were also large, robust carnivores. As they and the broad-snouted Peirosaurids belonged to opposite branches of Notosuchia, their resemblance was the result of them occupying similar places in the food chain. The most common Sebecosuchians during Kostensuchus's time were the Peirosauridae. They reached similar sizes as the Peirosaurids, although some Sebecosuchians during the Jurassic period, and even after the Age of Dinosaurs, grew far larger. In contrast to the Bulldog Croc, Peirosauride limbs were fully upright. This would have made these land crocs more adept runners, but as ectotherms, they would have still had less stamina than the dinosaurs. The forelimbs of Kostensuchus had a greater range of movement, a trait which later independently evolved in the Sebecosuchian subclade Sebecidae. Compared to the contemporary Peirosaurids, Kostensuchus's snout was shorter and wider, but not as tall, still somewhat echoing the more crocodile-like shape of Peirosauridae. Peirosauride snouts were narrower, with their jaws broadening near their orbits. Their teeth were zyphodont, but even fewer in number than Kostensuchus, suggesting they may have been even more specialized for targeting dinosaurs. However, their bite was weak by the standards of large carnivores. Komodo dragons, modern carnivores with zyphodont teeth and relatively weak bites, compensate by leveraging their powerful neck muscles to tear their knife-like teeth through their victim's flesh, and the Peirosaurids are thought to have done the same. Although the bite force of Kostensuchus has yet to be tested, it seems to have been stronger than that of the Peirosaurids, although it also benefited from enlarged neck muscles. As in most other crocodilomorphs, Kostensuchus and the Peirosaurids had rows of bony osteoderm armor along their backs. Besides protection, these osteoderms also served as a bracing system when moving on land. Crocodilians also use their armor to thermoregulate by pumping blood to them, which then rapidly exchanges heat with the external environment. But Notosuchian osteoderms lack the necessary blood vessels for this. The dorsal osteoderms of Kostensuchus and other Peirosaurids were flanked by smaller accessory osteoderms, but the armor of the Peirosaurids was less extensive, and outright absent in the species Peirosauridae. This is thought to be due to the Peirosaurids having gradually developed a distinct bracing system from the rest of Crocodylomorpha. Although Peirosauridae and the broad-snouted Peirosaurids like Kostensuchus converged upon many similar traits, there were a number of distinctions between these dinosaur-hunting land crocs. During Kostensuchus' time, southern Patagonia had a warm-temperate, semi-humid climate. The environment preserved in the Chirula Formation consists of floodplains and wetlands. Such an environment would have been quite suitable if Kostensuchus still retained some ties to the water. The fauna of Late Cretaceous Patagonia was different from the more familiar species found in North America, such as Tyrannosaurus and Triceratops, with only limited overlap across even the major dinosaurian groups. Few of the contemporary dinosaurs are well known even among specialists, as the Chirula Formation has only begun to be the subject of detailed study within the last decade. The top predator in the region was the Megaraptoran theropod, Maip. Though it may have been distantly related to the bone-crushing, tiny-armed Tyrannosaurids of the northern hemisphere, Megaraptorans are characterized by their large arms and hand claws. Maip is the only known predator found in the Chirula Formation that was larger than the Bulldog Croc. It may even be the largest known Megaraptoran. Small contemporary theropods included an unnamed Noasaurid, a clade known for their teeth when splayed outwards, not unlike the teeth found in Kostensuchus' lower jaw. It also coexisted with the slender-snouted Unenlagiad Canc australis. Unenlagids were piscivores, specialized fish-eaters, having replaced the by then long-extinct Spinosaurids. Such a diet would have put the lightly built canc in perilously close contact with the partially aquatic Peirosaurids, such as Kostensuchus. The dominant herbivores in Late Cretaceous South America were the long-necked sauropods. Most of these giants were well beyond the might of any land croc, but a few small species have been found on the continent. More importantly, the plentiful juveniles of larger species, such as Nulotitan, would have been suitable prey for the Peirosaurids. Most adult dinosaurs Kostensuchus preyed upon were ornithischians, such as the small plant eater Isasi cursor. It was an elasmarian, a clade of bipedal ornithischians endemic to the southern continents. Since these dinosaurs were built for speed, Kostensuchus would have had to rely on surprise attacks. Fossils have been found of what appears to have been an Isasi cursor herd. By living in groups, these small dinosaurs increased their chances of spotting lurking land crocs before it was too late. More formidable prey were the peirosauridae, relatives of the famous club-tailed ankylosaurs. Though only about 2 to 3 meters long, these tank dinosaurs had large, frond-like tail clubs to defend themselves with. While only fragmentary peiroankylosaur fossils are found in the Chirula Formation, the Peiroankylosaur stegoros is found in the nearby Chilean Dorotea Formation, whose fauna overlaps with that of the Chirula Formation. Another likely prey animal of the broad-snouted Peirosaurid found in the Dorotea Formation is Gonkoken. It was a hadrosauroid closely related to the true hadrosaurs, such as Parasaurolophus and Edmontosaurus. Unlike its more famous relatives, Gonkoken grew only 4 meters, or 12 feet long. Fragmentary hadrosaurid fossils have been found in Kostensuchus' native Chirula Formation. Though mostly known from the northern hemisphere, hadrosaurs colonized South America by the end of the Cretaceous. Given their size, when fully grown, these dinosaurs were almost exclusively the prey of Maip. Smaller prey of Kostensuchus included the platypus ancestor Patagorhynchus and Patagomya, which is one of the largest mammals of the Mesozoic era. Indeed, while still small, mammals in Late Cretaceous South America had elevated body sizes compared to their diminutive peers up north. Also on the menu was the large frog Calitocephalia, better known as the Chilean helmeted bullfrog. Though smaller than its exceptionally large prehistoric forebears, it is the second largest species of frog alive today. What was absent were other land crocs. Although Notosuchians were common throughout much of the southern hemisphere during the late Cretaceous, Kostensuchus is currently the only identified Crocodylomorph from the Chirilla Formation. There is a notable divide between the animals in Kostensuchus' home in southern Patagonia and the fauna of northern Patagonia. Rather than peirosaurids and the long-clawed Megaraptorans, the top predators were Peirosauridae and Paleosaurids, carnivorous dinosaurs with short, blunt skulls, and even smaller arms than those of Tyrannosaurus rex. Had they lived together, the Peirosauridae and Kostensuchus would have hunted similar types of animals, as would the different clades of theropod dinosaurs. However, the predators of prehistoric Patagonia were not always so geographically distinct. The older, broad-snouted Peirosaurid Gasparinosuchus lived alongside Abellosaurids, Megaraptorans, and even a small Peirosauridae. In Madagascar, Kostensuchus' relative Maiadonosuchus coexisted with the Abellosaurid Majungasaurus. Why Patagonia's predator guilds became so disparate from each other at the end of the Cretaceous period is unclear, but one possible factor is the greater prevalence of the generally small, but armored Saltosaurian sauropods in the north. Kostensuchus is a prime example of the wonders that lay buried in overlooked fossil formations. Despite not being a dinosaur, the Bulldog Croc was the second largest predator in its ecosystem. Nor was it even an evolutionary fluke. While only recently recognized by science, its lineage of broad-snouted peirosaurids terrorized the southern hemisphere for at least 35 million years. As a recent discovery, much still remains to be uncovered regarding Kostensuchus. Thank you for watching, and a thank you to my supporters on Patreon. If you enjoyed this video, please remember to hit the like button, and consider subscribing if you'd like to see more. If you'd like to support this channel more directly, you can join my Patreon, where you'll be given access to polls to select the topics of future videos. Finally, be sure to have a great day.